The silent arrival. The Galactic Empire controlled 300 star systems, and for 5,000 years, no force in the known galaxy had successfully challenged their supremacy. Their crystalline ships glided through space like predators through an ocean of stars, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. The Empire's philosophy was simple: strength determined worth, and they possessed strength beyond measure. Commander Vexara stood on the bridge of her patrol cruiser, watching the endless void through translucent viewing panels. Her forearms moved in practiced harmony as she manipulated the ship's controls, her violet eyes scanning data streams with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. The border region she commanded had been quiet for decades. Most species knew better than to approach uninvited. The peace shattered when her navigation officer suddenly stiffened. The creature's tentacles, which normally moved in lazy patterns across its console, froze completely. Commander Vexara noticed immediately. In 500 years of service, she had never seen Navigation Officer Thren react this way. "Commander," Thren's voice carried an unusual tremor, "we're detecting something impossible. Energy signatures from the Void Sector." The Void Sector. Every officer on the bridge turned toward Thren. That region of space had been dead for 3 millennia, ever since the Empire had conducted their Great Purge. Nothing lived there. Nothing could live there. The Empire had made certain of that, turning entire star systems into gravitational anomalies as a warning to others. Vexara moved to the scanner station, her crystalline skin shifting colors from calm blue to alert amber. The readings made no sense. Energy patterns were emerging from the dead zone, but they followed no known technological signature. They seemed almost organic, pulsing like a heartbeat through the vacuum of space. "Enhance resolution," she ordered. "Full spectrum analysis." The image that materialized on their screens defied logic. A ship was emerging from the Void Sector, but calling it a ship seemed inadequate. It appeared to be constructed from some kind of dark metal that absorbed light, rather than reflecting it. The vessel's surface rippled and shifted as if it were alive, constantly reforming itself. No visible weapons, no standard propulsion systems, no communication arrays that matched any known civilization's technology. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of Vexara's cruiser, yet it moved through space with impossible grace. It didn't follow standard trajectory patterns. Instead, it seemed to flow through the cosmos, bending space around itself in ways that made the Empire's best physicists look like children playing with stones. "Identification protocols," Vexara commanded, though she already suspected they would fail. Every scan came back corrupted. The ship's hull seemed to interfere with their sensors, creating feedback loops that threatened to overload their systems. What little data they could gather was contradictory. The vessel registered as both there and not there, existing in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. "Open communication channels," Vexara ordered. "All frequencies." She spoke in the Empire's formal greeting, her voice carrying the authority of 5,000 years of dominance. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Galactic Empire sovereign space. Identify yourself and state your purpose. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination." Silence answered her. The dark ship continued its steady approach, neither accelerating nor slowing. It moved with purpose, as if the Empire's threats were beneath notice. Vexara felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. The Empire's standard protocol was clear. Any vessel that refused to identify itself was to be destroyed. But something about this ship made her hesitate. Perhaps it was the way it moved, with absolute confidence through space that should have been impossible to navigate. Perhaps it was the energy readings that suggested power levels beyond anything in the Empire's arsenal. "Commander," her weapons officer spoke up. "The intruder has crossed the territorial boundary. Protocol demands—" "I know what protocol demands," Vexara interrupted. She made her decision. "Power weapons. Warning shots across their bow." The cruiser's plasma cannons charged with a familiar whine. Beams of superheated energy lanced through space, deliberately missing the dark vessel by mere kilometers. The warning was clear. The next shots would not miss. The mysterious ship's response was unlike anything Vexara had witnessed. It didn't return fire. It didn't accelerate or take evasive action. Instead, space around it began to distort. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend, creating a sphere of warped space-time around the vessel. When the sphere expanded outward, Vexara's cruiser shuddered as if struck by an invisible hand. "Shields at 60%. her engineer reported in alarm. "Commander, they didn't fire any weapons. Our shields are failing from some kind of dimensional distortion." Before Vexara could respond, the dark ship finally broke its silence, but it didn't send a transmission through normal channels. Instead, every being on the cruiser heard a voice directly in their minds, speaking in perfect Kareth despite the impossibility of an outsider knowing their neural language. "We are the children of Earth. We are the survivors of your genocide. We have returned not for war but for justice. Stand aside." The bridge fell into shocked silence. Earth. That name was buried in the Empire's classified archives, hidden in files that even Vexara didn't have clearance to access. Earth was supposed to be a myth, a cautionary tale about a primitive species that had resisted the Empire 3,000 years ago. According to the official records, they had been completely eliminated. "Impossible," Vexara whispered. "The humans are extinct. The Empire made certain of nothing," the voice continued, somehow conveying infinite patience and terrible purpose. "You destroyed our world. You scattered our people. You thought you had broken us, but humanity does not break. We adapt, we survive, we evolve." The dark ship suddenly accelerated, moving faster than any vessel should be capable of. Vexara's cruiser fired its main weapons, no longer holding back. Beams of antimatter and clouds of quantum torpedoes filled space with deadly light. Any normal ship would have been vaporized instantly, but the human vessel seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. The weapons passed through it as if it were a shadow, causing no damage whatsoever. Then the dark ship responded with its own offensive capabilities. It didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, localized gravitational anomalies began appearing around Vexara's cruiser. Small singularities, no larger than pinpoints, materialized within the Empire ship's hull. They lasted only microseconds, but each one tore away pieces of the vessel, ignoring shields and armor as if they didn't exist. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, someone screamed. "We're losing structural integrity." Vexara watched her proud cruiser being dismantled piece by piece. Her weapons were useless. Her shields were meaningless. For the first time in 5 millennia, an Empire vessel was completely outmatched. "Send a priority transmission to Imperial Command," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Tell them the humans have returned. Tell them we were wrong. They're not extinct. They've become something else." The transmission barely escaped before another gravitational anomaly appeared on the bridge itself. Vexara had just enough time to see the dark ship pass by their viewing panel, its hull rippling with patterns that seemed almost like writing, symbols that hurt to perceive directly. As her cruiser broke apart around her, Vexara's last thought was a question that would soon echo throughout the Empire. If this was just one ship, how many more were coming? The dark vessel continued its journey deeper into Empire space, leaving behind the scattered remains of the patrol cruiser. It sent no further communications, made no demands. It simply moved forward with the inevitability of fate itself. Throughout the Empire's border stations, alarms began to sound. Scanner operators reported similar signatures emerging from dead zones across multiple sectors. The ghost ships of humanity were awakening, and each one carried 3,000 years of patient preparation. The Empire had ruled through fear for 5 millennia. Now, for the first time, they would learn what it meant to be afraid. The Reckoning. Within hours of the first encounter, panic spread through the Kareth Empire's command structure like wildfire through dry forest. Emergency sessions convened on the capital world of Kareth Prime, where beings who hadn't felt fear in millennia found themselves grappling with reports that defied everything they believed about their supremacy. Grand Admiral Kextor, Supreme Commander of the Empire's military forces, stood before the Imperial Council, his 6 eyes focused on the holographic displays showing dozens of dark ships emerging from dead zones across their territory. Each vessel moved with the same impossible grace, the same reality-bending technology that had destroyed Vexara's cruiser. "How many?" The Emperor's voice resonated through the council chamber, each word carrying the weight of 5,000 years of absolute rule. "Current count stands at 47 vessels. Divine One," Kextor reported, his usual confidence notably absent. "But new signatures appear every hour. They're emerging from every dead zone we created during the Great Purges." The implications were staggering. The Empire had conducted purges across hundreds of systems over the millennia, eliminating species deemed too dangerous or too resistant to their rule. If the humans had somehow survived in all these dead zones, if they had spent 3,000 years preparing in secret, then the Empire faced something unprecedented. "Mobilize everything," the Emperor commanded. "Every fleet, every reserve, every weapon we possess." These primitives will learn why the Kareth Empire has ruled for 5 millennia. The Empire's response was swift and overwhelming. 12 full battle fleets converged on the human vessels' projected paths. Each fleet contained hundreds of ships, from small attack craft to massive dreadnoughts that had never known defeat. The combined firepower could crack planets and destabilize stars. The first major engagement occurred near the trade hub of Xelon Station. 3 human vessels faced off against an entire Empire fleet. Grand Admiral Kextor watched from his flagship, confident that overwhelming numbers would prevail where a single cruiser had failed. The Empire fleet opened fire simultaneously, creating a wall of destructive energy that should have vaporized anything in its path. But the human ships did something impossible. They didn't dodge or shield themselves. Instead, they seemed to step sideways through dimensions existing in multiple places at once. The Empire's weapons struck after images while the real vessels remained untouched. Then the humans revealed their true capabilities. The 3 ships suddenly became 12, then 48, then hundreds. Each one was partially real, partially quantum probability. The Empire's targeting systems couldn't distinguish between actual vessels and quantum echoes. Their weapons fired frantically at shadows while the real ships methodically dismantled their formation. Gravitational weapons tore through Empire vessels with surgical precision. Dimensional rifts opened inside shield generators, command bridges, and engine cores. The Empire's mighty dreadnoughts, each one a symbol of their dominance, crumbled like sandcastles before an incoming tide. But the humans showed remarkable restraint. They disabled rather than destroyed when possible. Escape pods were left untouched. Medical frigates were ignored entirely. This wasn't mindless vengeance, it was calculated justice. Amid the chaos of battle, every being in the system received a transmission, not through their communication systems but directly into their consciousness. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but carried the weight of 3 millennia of determination. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking for the Terran Collective. 3,000 years ago, you came to our world. You demanded our submission. When we refused, you burned our cities, poisoned our oceans, and turned our sky to ash. 7 billion humans died in a single day." The transmission paused, allowing the weight of those words to settle. But humanity endures. Those who escaped scattered to the void zones, the dead spaces you created with your other genocides. We found the ruins of the architects, the remains of the celestial builders, the technology of every species you eliminated. We learned from them all. We improved upon them all. We became what we needed to become. The Empire fleet's desperate attempts to rally were futile. Their formations collapsed, their strategies useless against an enemy that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime. Within an hour, the entire fleet was disabled, floating helplessly in space. "For 3,000 years we prepared," Admiral Chen's voice continued, "not for revenge, but for justice. The Kareth Empire's age of tyranny ends today. You have a choice. Surrender and accept judgment for your crimes, or face the consequences of resistance." On Kareth Prime, the Emperor watched the destruction of his fleet with growing horror, but pride ran deep in the Empire's veins. They activated their ultimate weapon, the Sun Killer, a device capable of causing stars to go supernova. If they couldn't defeat the humans conventionally, they would destroy entire systems to stop them. The Sun Killer fired at the star nearest to the human fleet. The beam of exotic energy should have triggered a stellar collapse within minutes. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The human ships formed a pattern in space, creating a geometric configuration that somehow absorbed the Sun Killer's energy. They redirected it, transformed it, and sent it racing back toward its origin. The Emperor had just enough time to realize their ultimate weapon had been turned against them before the redirected energy struck the Sun Killer's location. The resulting explosion was visible from 3 systems away, though the humans had carefully calculated the blast to minimize collateral damage. With their ultimate weapon destroyed and their fleets in ruins, the Empire's member species began to rebel. Worlds that had been subjugated for centuries saw their chance at freedom. The humans didn't conquer these worlds, they simply removed the Empire's ability to oppress them. The final blow came when hundreds of human vessels appeared above Kareth Prime itself. They didn't attack. They didn't need to. Their very presence, hovering above the Empire's capital like dark angels of judgment, was message enough. Admiral Chen appeared in person for the first time, transported directly to the Imperial Palace through means the Empire's scientists couldn't explain. She stood before the Emperor, a human woman who looked no different from the primitive species the Empire had tried to exterminate 3 millennia ago. Yet something in her eyes suggested she had seen the birth and death of stars. "The Kareth Empire is dissolved," she stated simply. "Your military forces will be disbanded. Your conquered worlds will be freed. Your technology will be shared among all species equally. You will face trial for 3,000 years of genocide and oppression." The Emperor, who had never knelt to anyone, found himself unable to stand before this human's gaze. "What are you?" he whispered. "What have you become?" Sarah Chen's expression softened slightly. "We are what you forced us to become. We are humanity, tempered by loss, strengthened by survival, and elevated by the knowledge of those you destroyed. We are the voice of every species you silenced, the hand of every civilization you crushed. We are consequences." The transformation of the galaxy happened with stunning speed. The human fleet didn't establish a new empire. Instead, they created something unprecedented. A true collective where every species had a voice, where knowledge was shared freely, where strength was measured not by military might but by contribution to the whole. The Kareth were not exterminated as they had done to others. They were given the chance to atone, to learn, to become part of something greater than conquest and domination. Many took that chance, finding redemption in service to those they had once oppressed. Some called it justice. Others called it mercy. But throughout the galaxy, beings who had lived in fear for millennia called it by another name: freedom. The human ships remained, patrolling not as conquerors but as guardians. They had returned not to rule, but to ensure that no species would ever again face extinction at the hands of Empire. They had survived the worst the galaxy could inflict and emerged not as monsters but as protectors. In the end, the greatest revenge humanity took was to become everything the Empire was not: compassionate, just, and dedicated to the preservation of all life. They had won not through superior firepower, but through superior philosophy. They had conquered not through fear, but through hope. The ghost fleet of humanity had awakened, and with it, a new age for the galaxy had begun. An age where the stars no longer fell silent before tyranny, but sang with the voices of free worlds united in purpose. And in the void zones, where the Empire had created death, humanity had planted seeds of life that would bloom for millennia to come.